Welcome all to our Masterclass RESTful Application Programming Model. My name is Xander Rijken. I will be one of your hosts for today. This is an agenda we have prepared. We start with a short intro, and afterwards André will take over with some theory about RESTful Application Programming Model. Then we have the first part of our hands-on exercises. About 6 o'clock, we prepared a break so everybody can grab a bite or have some supper with their family. We'll kindly ask everybody to be back at around 6:30 for the second part of the hands-on. And we will wrap up this masterclass around 8:30. And afterwards, we'd like to have some stammtisch, so everybody's invited to share a beer and chat with each other and some other social conversation. Housekeeping rules for today. Please note that the masterclass will be recorded, at least the theoretical part. If you have any questions about the RESTful Application Program Model theory, please ask it in the chat functionality of this meeting. And if you face any trouble during the hands-on, please raise your hand digitally. You can do that by raising your hand in the emoticons. We are Innovation. We are your host for today. We are a niche player with a special focus on user experience and SAP Fiori. In the past, we hosted several sessions about these topics, which can be found on our YouTube channel and also on our website. One of our events was Cloud Application Programming Model by DJ Adams, the Java version, a cool way to program applications by Java. But we see also a large community and a large group of customers that are still using ABAP as their core development language. If we look around us, there's still quite a group, ABAP developers, a large community, and that's why we're hosting this masterclass RESTful Application Programming Model. And let's face it, it's still a neat programming language. Every release, much functionalities are added to this language. So let's start and give our speakers a warm welcome. Our stars of the night, André Fischer, Harish, and George. I would like to give the controls to you now, André, and could you introduce yourself and also your colleagues?
My name is André Fischer. I'm product manager for in the ABAP platform team. So with several other colleagues, and there in addition, I'm focusing still on the topic SAP Gateway, so the very old stuff, but now I'm focusing on the BTP ABAP environment, so ABAP in the cloud and the ABAP RESTful programming model. Harish?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, hello, I'm Harish. I'm also in the same team as Andre, and I'm working as a senior product specialist. My main topic is CDS views and presently ABAP S/4HANA Cloud Platform and BTP.
Yes, hi, my name is Georg. I'm working also in the ABAP Platform Layer 2 development team, and there I'm responsible as a senior user assistance developer as part of the RAP integration team.
Okay, then I guess I will start. Let's then start with some theory. So today the plan is to give you an introduction to the ABAP RESTful programming model. Maybe we can do it with hand raising. Who knows already what this is, so that I'm a little bit aware how many people know this already. Okay, one. Do I see how many people have raised the hand here? No, no? Okay, good. So I will start with an introduction, and then afterwards, the plan is to do a hands-on session. So there we prepared a script that we also used at TechEd, so that walks you through the development of an ABAP RESTful programming business object. And there you can follow step by step how to do that. And we will be here to support you if you are getting stuck or can also explain something. Okay, let's get started. So the ABAP RESTful Application Programming, in short RAP, because in former times it was called the RESTful ABAP Application the RESTful ABAP Programming Model, so the name became longer, but the abbreviation RAP still is there. And this typical disclaimer that you know here from our presentations. And I will first explain a bit about the big picture, why we did it, then show in a short demo how such an object looks like, and then some major updates for what is there, and give a short summary and outlook. So the big picture is that the ABAP platform that we have now, the newest one, is used now in SAP S/4HANA as well as in the ABAP environment in SAP Business Technology Platform. Whereas the SAP Business Suite still resides on the SAP NetWeaver application server ABAP. So we have the same ABAP platform used on-premise S/4HANA, in SAP S/4HANA in cloud, and in the ABAP environment of the SAP Business Technology Platform. And what are the major innovations here? The ABAP platform is using SAP S/4HANA solely, and it's optimized to build in the end SAP Fiori-based UIs. And it can, as I said, not also be used on premise. It is also used in the cloud in the SAP BTP. And what does it all offer? So when we are looking at what kind of services can we build, we can either build Fiori-based UIs, but we are also able to build so-called web APIs that are specialized on being used for, let's say, if you're talking with machines or other API consuming applications. And the programming model that we are now offering is supporting both so-called greenfield development. So when you start from scratch, you create your own tables, but also for so-called brownfield development. So this is the use case where you are building applications on top of existing tables or APIs, which is on-premise the typical use case. And as I showed in the slide before, this programming model is available in the cloud and in on-premise, and that means for SAP S/4HANA and for the Business Technology Platform. And it's it's a bunch of several things. So we have concepts. So business objects follow when you build them. There is tooling around. And the language, languages is maybe not that correct. It's one language, that's ABAP. So we start when building a business object using the ABAP RESTful programming model. The data modeling is done in CDS. That means those of you that have never built a CDS view before should now start to do so, and you can do this later on in the hands-on. So this is new compared to, let's say, on-premise development in the business suite. Then, if we distinguish between queries, that means read-only scenarios, and scenarios where we are doing create, update, and deletes, where in a business object where we do create, update, and delete, we have a new kind of object. It's called the behavior definition. So it's a new ABAP repository object type that you create in order to specify how a business object behaves. So does it support create, update, and delete, or even draft, or does it have actions, and so on. The whole implementation finally is done in ABAP. So the behavior is implemented in ABAP classes, there in local classes, and there you have to write code. So this means as an ABAP developer, you won't get workless, even if there are certain scenarios where certain stuff like this reading from data via CDS view, that comes out of the box. Still, the CDS views have to be developed. Then on top of this interface layer, as we call it, we have a business object projection layer. So for each CDS view, you are going to build a projection view that will either publish all parts of the business object, or you can decide only to publish certain parts of the business object. The same is then true for the behavior. So you could define a behavior that built on a business object that you have built that supports each and everything, create, update, and delete. You may decide to have a scenario where only updates are allowed. And again, there is a layer where you can implement the behavior using ABAP code. On top of this, there is the service definition layer. Service definition means you define which parts of which entities are going to be published, so are accessible by the outside. So again, your business object might contain, let's say, 10 entities, and here you could define just to publish 5 of those in your service. And then a cool thing is that there is a service binding. So you now bind the whole implementation to a certain protocol. And there are 2 protocols out there right now. That's OData version 2 and OData version 4. And 2 different scenarios. That means UI-based or API-based binding. And the cool thing is that the implementation does not change. So you can publish the same implementation as a UI service and as an API. So on top of this, we are building Fiori UIs or either web APIs that consume then those APIs and OData services that are used for UI-based consumption. When building a business object, we distinguish 2 types of implementations. So one is called unmanaged. This is for so-called brownfield implementations, where you as a developer, you have to build each and everything. So for create, update, read, and delete, and also for reading. For reading, it's done by CDS. And what you are actually doing, you are building more or less an adapter that taps into your existing code. And there is the managed scenario that's for greenfield development, where you start from DB tables. And here, all the create, update, and delete stuff is handled by the framework. You, as a developer, can concentrate on the BO specific business logic and so-called determinations and validations. And when we look how a business object is called and how does it work with the user, so we have the working on an object starts with an interaction phase. Here we have modifying statements. For example, you create a new sales order and then read data because you have to check before you do an update whether something is logged or has been updated meanwhile, and the data is logged. And these changes are then written to a transactional buffer. And then if everything is fine and you press more or less the save button, the save sequence starts. So the first sequence there is the finalize, everything is finalized, and then there is a check before save method. So these methods can be implemented if needed. If you have passed this method, this check before save, then there's the point into no return. After having passed this section, the framework can only respond with a dump. Then adjust numbers is a phase. This is for so-called late numbering. So there are certain business scenarios that need a gap-free numbering. So if there is a sales order 2, there must be a sales order 3 before having a sales order 4. So you must not have sales order 2 and sales order 4 in the system, but no sales order 3. And this can only be set at a very late point in time when everything is already checked. And as a result, if something goes wrong, the framework has no other choice than to answer with a dump. And then the save sequence starts. So the developments flow. So we start with a data model based on tables. So that would be here. So we have database tables, for example, similar to what you are doing here. You have a table here, a travel table, and a booking table. And we are have to create a CDS view and a so-called behavior definition. So these you can find here in the data definition. We find a ZI RUB travel. I stands for interface view. And this is reading data from the table, and it has associations to other CDS view, but it has a special kind of association called composition that points to the booking entity. And if we are selecting this and pressing F3, then we are navigating to the CDS view definition of our booking entity, and this reads then again data from a table, and it has an association that points back to the parent object. And these are and this is the connection from your business object hierarchy. Next step is you have to implement the behavior, and this is done in the behavior implementation class. So we have the behavior is defined here in the behavior definition. So here it is specified what is what's the table where the data is persisted for this travel entity. You will find information, what is the E-tag, whether it supports create, update, and delete, and this is an association, which is create enabled. So when navigating from a travel to the booking, so bookings can only be created or are created here while navigating from the parent entity. And then we have so-called validations and determinations. And all of this is implemented, this logic, in the behavior implementation class. And if I press here, F3 again, oh, it's empty. But this is not really empty because everything, the implementation is done in so-called in local types and local classes. And here we have a behavior which is implemented. So we have those methods like accept travel. This is an action, and this is a validation for validate. And then this validation can be performed when saving the data or modifying the data, depending on how it is implemented. And then you will find here, for example, this is an implementation of a so-called determination, where we are looking for the travel ID when creating a new travel. And this is here a poor man's approach. Rather than using a number, number range, we are using here just the maximum number of items in that table. And then here you see something which is new with RAP. We have a modify entity statement. So this is EML, entity manipulation language. So these are new ABAP language elements that allow you to call another RAP object in a modifying way. So this is a standardized way to call what in former times were the BAPIs. Okay, how long do I have? Sorry, I have not looked. How many minutes are left?
You have till 5:15, so.
Okay, maybe a little bit speed up so you can do lots of more. You can define roles that are checking with existing authority objects, whether and you can define who is allowed to read certain data. You can have unit tests here on this level, or on this level here on the ABAP code level, or on the CDS level, and then you have this projection layer. You add a projection to your CDS view. So this is a define an entity as projection of, and this is the root statement that we also found here. This defines the root entity of the business object. And here is again this projection for the traveler. So here we define which elements, or whether all create, update, and delete, and so on are supported. Please note that here is no direct create on the child entity supported, but we use a create by association in the booking. And the implementation is done in a class. And here's the ABAP code that you have to write in order to implement the business logic. Finally, we have a service definition, service binding, so that we can have a so-called preview. And this is a nice feature. So you don't have to use Business Application Studio just to test your service. So you still need Business Application Studio to build real cool UIs and deploy them. But for the ABAP developer, they can use the preview just to test it. So we are going here to the service definition layer. So we have, and here we define all the entities which should be part of our service. And the service binding finally is this one. So if we click here on travel, the UI starts, a Fiori UI actually. And we can, Fiori Elements UI, I mean, and we can start it here and read some data, and automatically we can check the creation of data. And here you see an error message because this way. Why? Because I I have to add here a different. No, it's not everything here. I will have to select here more data. Okay, the agency, this is a validation, so I've just entered an agency which is not there, but if I select one from the value help, and here you see a draft has been saved automatically by when I had an interaction with UI, and this is now saved. Okay, and this is what we are going to do. We are going to build such a service And yeah, you will have time to do that. So how do we do that? So we prepared a script in GitHub. And here, this is the application that will be the result of this exercise. And here it is described how to start. So we start. You can have two tracks. If you follow the regular track, you would create each and everything step by step here, by step by step. And in the fast track, you would start with creating an ABAP class. And we have provided code for that. And this uses a tool which is that I published on GitHub, the RUP generator. And this will then, as a result, generate for you in an existing package. It will create the tables and also certain artifacts so that you can start from there. So the data definitions are created, and you would then start by implementing the business logic in the behavior definition. So that would allow you to finish this exercise faster. If you prefer to do it step by step, you can follow the left side here of the script. And if you want to save some time and to concentrate on implementing the business logic, you are invited to use this scenario. Are there any questions that I've not answered yet? Okay, the question is that there is a version 2 service for product lookup. And this has been extended in the past. And they want to go to OData version 4. If you use SEGW, there is the option to create OData version 4 service, though I would not recommend to do that. But it depends on the release you're working on. Because if you want to develop OData version 4 services in older releases, so everything which is older of 1909, then you would have to go for a gateway implementation of an OData service. But I would recommend, if possible, to do it via the ABAP RESTful programming model. However, this requires 2020 feature pack 1. Okay, the question is whether all this code is added manually. So yes, in principle, everything has to be added manually. What you see here is in the fast track, this is a tool that I wrote that makes use of the RUP generator. Oh, it's the internal one, RUP generator Fischer. And this helps you to generate a RUP BO like this one, starting with a JSON file, and that helps you to save some writings. But the colleagues are working meanwhile on an implementation that will be part of ABAP in Eclipse. So then you can right-click on a table and create a BO. Still, you would have to implement the business logic. So this is something which is still left for you. Yeah, sure, yeah. Yeah, Georg answered this already. Yeah. Okay, then look at the time. Sander?
Yes.
Do I have some minutes left? So sorry, I forgot to look on the.
There's also one question from Ben Meijs.
Sorry?
There's also one question from Ben Meijs about transactional buffer.
Where one from?
What's the relation between the transactional buffer and the draft tables? Or are the draft tables the actual transactional buffer?
Yeah, they say that this transactional buffer is something which is, if you write directly to a table, right, and using the managed scenario, this transactional buffer is offered by the framework. So there's only if the data finally is saved, the data is committed, right? Mm-hmm. If you would use an existing implementation like a BAPI, then usually this transactional buffer would be offered by the BAPI. Or you would have to build this transactional buffer in quotes on your own, so that you would write first to the buffer and only in the save sequence get the data and then write it to the database. But this is not something which I see very often. So mostly in an existing, let's say, in an existing scenario, you would use BAPIs that have their own buffer. Or if they don't have it, we now have the option to use managed, where all the handling is done by the framework, and only have a so-called self-implemented save, where at a very late point in time, the data is actually saved via a call to a classic API. So these are the three options. So managed, where everything is handled by the framework. Manage with self-implemented save, where first the managed scenario is used, so the framework does everything and only at the end the data is saved. But this requires that all the data can be validated. And then the complete freedom, or you have to do everything yourself, with an unmanaged implementation where you have to take care of each and everything. Okay, the question is whether the RAP generator is also available in. So there is no SAP S4. So there is no 2009. So there is an SAP S4HANA 1909 or 2020. It can be used in 2020. I have to admit, I have to write a little bit more details in a blog how to use it there, because the APIs that I'm using there, the so-called XCO libraries, they are looking a little bit differently on-premise. Or put it this way, the generator as such is generating code of the ABAP language version 5. So that means that, like in the cloud, but then you are only allowed to call APIs that are C1 released. If you want to tap into APIs that are not released, which is maybe not that recommended, then you would have to go for to use other APIs there. Okay. So basically, so as I said, we can start here. So that means or I can show this here, right? So we create a package. Maybe this is a nice demo. So I'm logging on now here to a cloud system. And I will start with to create a new package. So I will call it here ZRUB Travel 4711 and Demo Stammtisch Netherlands. Okay, the super package is Z local. So this plays more or less the role of the $10. So I will create a new request. Demo Stammtisch. Okay, here we are. So the next part is that that we create a new class. And then are going back here and copying now this source code that you find here. Then you click on raw, and then you can easily use Control-A, Control-Copy, and replace everything here. And what we have then to do, we have to replace the hashtags with this number, right? And this does it here at 3 places. And actually, this is just a helper class. You can later on look what it does, what this code does. We just activate it now. This class. Okay, now it's active. And what it basically does, it generates the tables, and it then actually, and this is actually the call of my RUB generator. So it gets the data from this JSON file, and then everything runs. So I press now F9, and this will take now about 1.5 minutes. And then as a result, we will find a completely built RUB BO in our package, hopefully. Okay, everything has been generated successfully, and these messages here you find, these would be the same messages you will get as warnings or error messages from the in ADT. So if I press now refresh, then you see what it has created. So it has created certain CDS views, this travel CDS view based on that table. And it has created metadata extension files so that you can now start here, continue with the script. Yeah. So you have to navigate here back, and then you are in the script. And you're here now to the package where you look what it has created. And then the actual exercise starts, where you have to adjust a little bit the stuff and then continue with the next exercise. So the business service, where you actually implement the business logic.
I think it's time to start exercises.